I am. I actually started feeling better yesterday. So I had one
Oh,
of
that's
those
good.
colds that came out of nowhere. Actually, I know what happened. I went to a wedding the weekend before and
Yeah.
I set my hotel room to 60 degrees because it was boiling at first. And
Yeah.
after the wedding, I came home, forgot about it, and woke up in the middle of the night freezing. So that's definitely where that came from.
Yeah, that probably wouldn't have helped.
Yeah.
Um, hello, Blue. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How's everybody doing?
Everyone's slowly coming in this morning.
Well, it's a slow morning.
Fair
I
enough.
did not really want to get up, to be honest with you. I
Well,
woke up at 5 and I kind of moved around a little bit. I looked at the dog and she hadn't, thrown up or pooped on the floor. So I was like, okay, it's been a good night so far. And I went back to sleep. And then I woke up at 6 and then 7
wow.
and then 7:30. I was like, okay, I really got to get out of bed.
I'm glad we got to come on and hear how your sleep went last night.
Well, I mean, listen, there's nobody here, so this is the conversation we get to have.
Well, I'm reporting from Sydney, Australia. This is not my home city. We've got one of those annoying in-person events.
Yeah, Barry had to go to an in-person event this week. We're all disappointed by that.
That's right. That's right. This is a big medical conference, and what's good is they've actually
Could you have picked anything more boring. I mean, come on.
I know, but they've at least they haven't done hybrid, or not quite. They have sold virtual tickets, which is good, and they have people that can access the recordings and stuff afterwards. So at least they weren't trying to do it all at the same time. But
the half step in the right direction.
That's it. That's right. It's halfway there. Oh, look, Marley's just joined us.
Yeah, Marley has a problem that we have to get to Tyler. Actually, I think I saw something in a Facebook group.
I saw that too. A video broke it. Video broke the radio star.
Something along those lines. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well,
do we have any questions? It's going to be like a super short call, and we can all be like, "All right, good night."
Could be. It could be.
I have nothing that has come through the dashboard. Oh, wait.
No.
Yeah, now it does. We talk about it and it happens.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of like when I used to come to Blue about a tech problem. And then by the time he got to my computer, he fixed it with one thing. I was like, I did this 20 times. Okay. So this question is from John. He said, focusing on an Obvio and a speaker in a studio, any lessons learned from PLF Live?
From what perspective? From a speaker from an in-studio speaker, John? That's all right.
He could mime his response.
We could, but that
here we go.
I don't know that I would understand it.
Yeah, either would I. It was more about, you're obviously facilitating the event. Any things you learned about Obvio that would be beneficial for those of us that are using it, and having experienced it on the other side, I can sort of see things about how it worked, and I thought it worked well, but there may be little things that, okay, this is something you need to warn your speakers about. Like, obviously one of the ones was Jeff can't see at any distance. So he could only call in certain rooms because he couldn't see the other rooms, or something like that. He was complaining about, well, my eyes aren't what they used to be. So.
Yeah, so his eyes aren't what they used to be is more a function of the text in under the name of the gallery, he could actually see all of the rooms. He had to move. I don't know if you noticed, but there were times like there were some tight shots of Jeff.
Yeah, he would go forward. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And in the gallery view, we on the video settings page or tab of Zoom, there's a little checkbox that says always display names on participants or something. It's something along those lines. It may not be the exact wording, but we turn that on, and then on the gallery view, underneath each of the 49 people, there's a little name so they can see what their name is. One of the weird things, or one of the things that we wish Zoom would change, but I've been wishing it for 3 years and it hasn't happened. So I feel like all is lost on this one. Was that they would allow us to adjust the size of that text. They have accessibility features that allow you to change almost everything else with the exception of that one piece. And as a result, every once in a while, speakers have a hard time seeing it in our studio. It's one of the reasons that in the new studio, we actually increased the size of the televisions to the maximum that we could. So the TVs in front of us are 70-inch televisions. And it's not significantly larger than the other studio, than the old one. Those were 65, but it's like every little bit helps. So I would say you could translate that for you if you're going to have a television behind your camera in a studio or even a home studio environment. You want to make sure before you load up the event that when you're in gallery view, you can read the names. And if you can't, either position the television closer or get a larger TV.
Or glasses that maybe are tailored for the problem.
Perhaps, if that works, for sure. Yeah. But that may cause another issue, right? I mean,
yeah. Navigation would be tough because then the
well,
stuff up
yeah,
close.
exactly. Yeah, like if you have notes, like we have a speaker who always keeps notes on like a stand or a music stand or a small little table right next to them. And if they got glasses that allowed them to see the wall better, they may have issues reading their notes. I guess that's where bifocals come into play. Or
well, I'm already there. I'm probably very close to Jeff's age, so I understand the part of the problem.
Yeah,
I had to grow up with it, but like, whoa, you fall off a cliff as you get older.
Yeah. Well, I'm starting to realize that my arms are not quite long enough for my eyes, which I think means I need to think about glasses at some point soon. Anyway.
Okay. Anything else that was like when you're prepping speakers or anything else that sort of jumped out from the weekend?
I mean, this isn't really an Obvio thing. This is specific to our studio space and how Jeff was using it. But they had some pretty extensive use of ChatGPT, right? And basically, another way to say it is they had some pretty extensive use of live demos of something on their computer, whether it was in their case, it was ChatGPT, but when we do Obvio stuff, like the onboarding workshop in studio, it's the exact same thing. I'm just doing it with Obvio instead of ChatGPT. And their speakers weren't comfortable, or a couple of them weren't comfortable with a multi-monitor setup on their computer.
Yeah.
And what was taking place in that moment was the computer they were sitting at, they had a monitor, like it was a laptop. So they had the monitor on the laptop, but then to display stuff to attendees, they just had to drag it up to a monitor right above their screen. And it happened to be when you were sitting at that desk, the monitor that was directly, like, because there's 12 TVs there, but the TV that was literally directly above the monitor from an eyeline perspective was the monitor that we displayed to them what they were showing to their attendees. But it was very hard for some of them to get used to dragging that window up to the second monitor.
Okay. Yep.
And then dragging it back down to take it off. And we practiced quite a bit the day before, but really in the end, it was still a little bit of a challenge for some. Now, that's a function of whatever it is you're going to do with your speakers. Try and make sure it's not the first time they're doing it. But
like the speaker, the first time he was using a Mac. So
sure, 100%.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Funny enough, I didn't feel that part was a problem. I mean, speakers fumbling at the computer, being nervous, I just wrote off as, well, most people do that. And it sort of blended in reasonably well. So
yeah, it worked fine. But from if I was looking for areas for improvement, that would be one of them.
And another one that I noticed more in the chat, and because I sort of knew what to do as an IT guy, and obviously having been in Leap and all the rest of it, is people were having challenges like take the text on the dashboard, feed it into ChatGPT, maybe change a few words, put the results back into your form, hit save. That is your running document for the event. And I mean, I ended up with like a 20, 30 page document afterwards. So like, yes, 3 days, all this work done. It was wonderful. But I was surprised at the number of people was like, oh, where do I copy it from? It's on the dashboard. Yeah, where's the dashboard? It's like, oh, come on.
Yeah. That is definitely one of those things that there was a lot of interaction from an attendee perspective to make that work. And they used it in such a specific way that, and there was some, shall we say, last minute around how those exercises were delivered and created.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if I had it to do over again, I probably would have talked to the development team to see if there was a way that we could institute a copy button on the dashboard so that the person didn't have to highlight the text that they needed to copy and then go to ChatGPT to paste. There were a couple of other things that I actually really wanted to, we just ran out of time because of how the content was presented to us. I think it would have been cool to see if there was a way to embed ChatGPT onto the dashboard in a way that would have been a little bit easier rather than having to navigate windows back and forth. But even have, you've been on a website for sure at some point in the past where there's like a little, even the Obvio backend actually has this, right? A little copy button that copies the text that is in a little box right there. Mm-hmm. Even having something like that, that allowed you to do that. Or I didn't even have a chance to do this to see if ChatGPT allows you to load the page where you can interact with it through URL parameters so that you can preload the prompt. I'm not even sure if that's possible, but
it does have the ability. If you give it a URL, it'll read it. I figure exactly, because I tried to upload a document. It was too long. It says, give me a URL or whatever the prompt was, so that it could then read the document.
So for that specific, like, I wouldn't say that this is an Obvio thing, although of course it's through Obvio. I think if we had a little bit more time and a little bit more collaboration with their creative team who was coming up with the content, we probably could have come up with a more elegant solution than highlight the text above the text box, press Control C or Command C, open up a new tab, navigate to ChatGPT, open up an interaction, paste the prompt, and now once you get the response, now copy that prompt and navigate back to the other tab, paste it into the form, then do the next question, do the same thing, then the next question, do the same thing, then the next question, do the same thing. And now don't forget to press submit or save, because if you skip that step, now you got to start it all again, right? There was a lot of things that had to happen in order for that to take place. We contemplated putting it into multiple forms, right? Where it was like not just one form that submitted 6 or 7 questions, but 6 or 7 forms, so that people wouldn't lose their work. But we didn't, yeah.
I mean, I obviously know a bit more, but I thought it worked fine. But I'm comfortable with this copy, paste, save type model. I've lost over decades. I've lost all kinds of things as a software engineer. So I appreciate also that one of the things is, as magical as Obvio is, if you have a speaker that goes off piste, it sort of screws it up. And it isn't Obvio, it's the speaker. And the example was when they did one of the Q&As with the coaches, and there was so many people in the room that one of the coaches, oh, why don't we just do breakout rooms? And they then split us up, except it seemed like 50% of us ended up in one room with no coach. And then it's like, so then it was a free for all with 200 people talking. So,
yeah, there's definitely, there's some dangers always with guest speakers who don't understand. Not when I say the platform, I don't actually mean Obvio. When I say the platform, I really more mean how Zoom interacts, right? If they don't understand Zoom, and they're like, hey, can we just unmute everybody? Like as an example, no, we can't do that. That's not something that we can do. And even if we could do it, we wouldn't. Can they just unmute themselves? No, you don't want that. Trust me. Because I mean, I'm fine with it in this particular call because there's only 15 of us. But when there's 250 people, I don't want them unmuting themselves, not because I'm concerned about something that someone will say, although invariably somebody will say something stupid, right? I'm more concerned with somebody unmutes themselves accidentally and then turns and says, hey, Barry, would you do me a favor and take Rosie outside? Not realizing they're unmuted, and now 250 people are just completely interrupted, right?
yeah.
So there's little things that, sometimes people just don't know.
So
and
soft
there's
issues
only
almost, rather than
yeah, and there's only so
straight
many
tech.
things you can tell a speaker, right? We've been doing this for 3 years now, and some of the stuff, truthfully, sometimes we forget, right? We forget some of the best practices that we've put into place that are no longer question marks for us. They're just ingrained, right? Myself, Grant, with the work that he does, and our whole team, and a few other teams that I know that really know Zoom and this virtual event platform inside and out. There's just stuff that we just do instinctively because it's no longer a question. Hey, puppy, what are you doing?
You called them.
Yeah, you know what? And there's things that there's the technology, there's the tool, and then there's the craft of how to use it and how to use it well. And often we can do a comparison between how we do these online events to how we did in-person events. And there's just certain things that you would never do in person in the same way. You have a room full of people and you say, hey, how about everyone goes outside for 30 seconds and then all come back in again? It's like, well, that's not going to be 30 seconds. It's like, that's not actually possible in person. Or it's like, okay, break into groups of 5, and inevitably that takes forever to do in person. But what happens is we have people that do little Zoom meetings that are not ran very well at all. And they think, oh yeah, we can do that on a big event as well. And of course it just doesn't work. And that's where craft comes in, where we're wanting to have a certain quality to the way that we do our events.
That's a great term, craft, for, in a sense, the soft skills that come from experience rather than just the buttons that we could push.
Yeah, it's the art that comes into it, right? Of how to execute a really great event. And one of those things is to not expect that the first event that you do is going to be perfect or amazing. And therefore, run a whole bunch of events. Like there really is something to be said for, you're planning a big event, so do 2 or 3 little events like really small, like have 10 people come along and you test out all of the stuff that you're trying to do, trying to get the tech to work, and how you're gonna move from one thing to the next, and how you're gonna read the chat, stuff like that. You were talking before about trying to read chat and read the names and things like that. I mean, we really love having hosts, and you can sometimes call them chat moderators. You know, it's something that Heather does on these calls, is great at it. And it's just keeping track of things, that questions that are coming in, and keeping an eye on the chat and things like that, so that she can jump in at any point and just be like, oh no, this person's asked this, or you've missed this, and now here's the next question. That sort of stuff is really invaluable, because it really engages the audience more, and it helps to shift the responsibility from just the speakers that you have. They feel like they've got extra support in the meetings. But having like these weekly meetings are great for us. You know, we're testing out things in the background. We're hearing back from you. What are the issues or the things? Like, it's really helpful just to be constantly doing things. You get the reps in.
Yep. I have just a sidebar. Marley, would you do me a favor? Either put it in the chat or unmute. Can you tell me, did you add a video element, like a video section, to your marketplace, or did you add a video inside of one of the content blocks?
Great question. I added a video section and just put the YouTube URL.
Okay. And as soon as you click save, it just went.
I was able to see it. I clicked save and I saw it on the page and I was like, oh my God, how fun. And then I got out of the page and I noticed that when I go to mankindsummit.com, which is my event registration page, and I click my, click to register, save your spot button, that goes to the Obvio's page, blank, doesn't work. I try to go to my mankindsummit.avio.yada yada, blank. And I can't even go through the back end to the shopping cart. It won't load.
Yep. Yeah, no, I see that. Okay. Awesome. We'll get that fixed as soon as he should be online within the next 5 minutes or so. The lead developer on Marketplace will take a quick peek at that and probably resolve it pretty fast for you. Just going to take a few minutes. And as soon as it's done, if you're still on this call, I'll let you know here, or Heather will. If not, we'll respond in the Obvio Facebook group. But hang tight; it'll be done before this call is over. All right, Heather. Why don't we continue with questions? And for those of you who have questions on the dashboard, speaking of going back and forth to the dashboard, there's an Ask a Question button on the dashboard. If you'll do me a favor and actually click that button and type in your question for me, that's generally speaking how we try to run these calls. I see a few new faces, some of our new users, so welcome. Just a quick reminder, this call, these Q&A calls are of course meant to be platform-based, but every once in a while we get into a little bit more production questions and sometimes just philosophical conversations, depending on how many questions we have from you guys. So don't worry about whether or not this is a super complicated question that you have or a super easy question that you have. We're here to answer those questions. There's no build to these questions, meaning if we answered this question on a previous call, I'm not going to refer you backwards. I'm simply going to answer your question. So there you go. Just click the Ask a Question button on the dashboard and go ahead and fill in that form and submit it for us. And Heather will read out your question. And if we have any clarifying questions, we'll unmute you. All right, Heather, let's go. What's next?
Let's see.
There's one question.
All right. Yes. Noel says, I have a question about the tabs below the buttons. That was it.
Okay. Noel, go ahead and unmute yourself. And what's your question?
Good morning. Okay, so
Morning.
you have all your buttons, and then there's like a row of categories that are underneath. And I apologize in advance. I didn't change the name of my organization. So Grant had to look it up last night under the million people who put my organization. I'm doing like what Grant said. I'm testing this out on my family. We're having a family vacation.
Yep.
So my information is kind of redundant in that I put everything in resources, like you had said, Blue, regarding like different documents that I had done. But all those little tabs below, all those little things below the actual buttons, you look at the little gear and there's nothing there. So I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do with those. You know what I'm talking about? They're black.
Yeah, I think so. Give me 1 second. Let me bring up do you mind if I'm just going to share my screen so I can take a look and then also have everybody else see what I'm looking at?
Okay.
So, I think what you're referring to is these, right?
That's what I'm referring to. Yes, exactly.
Okay. So, and tell me, are you, tell me again, because you're like, when you click on it, you're like, okay, I can change the text, but I can't change what it goes to. Is that what you mean?
Right, exactly.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. All right. So these buttons are, or these tabs are locked to features, to feature pages. So the first one, I believe, is the main menu, like the main dashboard link.
Right.
The second one is the speakers page. The third one is sponsors. The fourth one is Zoom backgrounds. The fifth one is leaderboard. The next one is FAQ. And the next one is what we call image waterfall. Now, how you can tell that, what I'm talking about, the first one may not make sense, but if you hover over the next one and you look in the bottom right-hand corner of, in my browser, this is where it displays. It shows app.obv.io/speakers. It's going to be really hard to see, but you can, if you look hard, bottom left-hand corner, you can see that as I navigate, if I hover over the different ones, one says speakers, then sponsors, then things to bring, et cetera, et cetera. So these items are, this menu is links to subpages. Now,
Gotcha.
in your case, what you did is you took all of these things, the agenda and so on and so forth, you added them to resources, and then you copied and pasted the URL, like we talked about, into the actual link that the button goes to. So what you probably want to do is just turn off all of these items because you're probably not using them.
Correct.
So what you do is you go to features and then speakers, and up at the top where it says enabled, yeah, because you just have myself and Grant there. Nobody needs that. You just toggle it to the right or to the left, and it'll say disabled.
Okay.
Then you go down to sponsors, do the same thing. FAQ, do the same thing. Zoom backgrounds, do the same thing. Image entries, this one's a little bit different. You go to image waterfall settings and you disable it there. In this case, that's already disabled. And now when I go back to design and dashboard, those items are still going to be there, but when you preview it, so you see it as a participant, that menu box goes away because none of those pages are active.
Beautiful.
Okay, so that's going to be the direction that'll make it easiest for you.
Awesome. That's all I needed to know. I'm testing it out on the worst audience ever, my family.
Awesome. Well, I mean, listen, have fun with it. There's nothing wrong with that.
Thank you.
You may want to delete some of the stuff that is just, Obvio stuff on it, though. Like the, let's see. I love that agenda. This agenda makes me want to go to it. There's a couple things that you may want to contemplate just as you're kind of playing around with it, is that agenda, there's a lot there, right? Because it's a fairly long, there's nothing wrong with what you've done, incidentally. I'm just going to tell you what we would do in a case like this, because this is a fairly long agenda and it just kind of gets lost. Like it's just a bunch of words. You may want to change your, like, add multiple agendas and have each one be a different day, right? And maybe not, but you know, because it's only 3 or 4 items per day, but maybe. So that's something you may want to consider. And adding multiple agenda items is just simply add and pick another agenda, select add, move it, you know, right below.
I gotcha.
Right, and then go in here and change this to general suggested agenda, day 1, May 15th.
Okay.
Right, something along those lines, and then add this one. You can't, unfortunately, May 16th, right? Or just, you know, forget day 1. That's not even what I meant, but whatever. You know, you may just put the date like that, and then drop,
okay.
right? And then add your individual items day by day. You don't necessarily have to do that, but visually that may be maybe a little bit easier to read.
Oh, beautiful. Great idea.
And I mean, it's worth remembering too with agendas, just for everyone thinking about agenda. A big feature of agendas is the automatic calculation of the time zone, and so it's particularly helpful when you're running events online and you've got people from all different time zones. They will see it in their time zone, and so when it's something that is time-based but not necessarily, and I know you're using this as just testing the platform, right? I totally get it. But sometimes people are wanting to list something out with dates and times that isn't so much trying to get a bunch of people all online from different time zones. And if that's the case, then it could be a blog post in the middle, and it could be formatted in whatever way you like. Where agenda is particularly helpful is because it's translating into different time zones for people. That's where it works really well. So it's just thinking about the different features of the different features as to what is best for displaying your content. Nice. Keep the questions coming in.
All right. So the next one we have is from Marley. She wants to know, what's the question button in the speaker page?
I think Marley is referring to actually the sponsor page, not the speaker page.
Yes, the sponsor page. Sorry, my sponsors happen to be my speakers. Okay.
Yep, no worries. So you're talking about
That little button on the right.
Yep.
Whatever that is.
Yep. Okay, so here's what that is. There's a process inside of Obvio that not many people use, that is essentially a way to have people engage with your sponsors. Now, this the idea of it is derived from something that a lot of trade shows will do, or larger conferences will do, like a passport to prizes sort of thing, where you get a little booklet when you go to the event, and there's like a whole bunch of different sponsors inside the booklet, and in order to complete it, you go to those booths. In theory, you interact with the sponsor, and then the sponsor stamps your book to say, yes, you visited my booth. And then at the end, you take your completed little booklet or page or however the event host has decided to put it together for you, and you submit it to the event team, right? The main booth. And then generally there's a prize of some sort, or a series of prizes that are given to everybody who fully interacted with the sponsors. Okay. This is a thing that if you go to conferences, that happens like all the time. And we were like, okay, how do we replicate something like that? How do we encourage our attendees to interact with our sponsors, because just throwing up a sponsor page and then having a link to click in the booth, maybe they'll click in, maybe they won't. But how do we encourage them to do it a little bit more? So the idea that we came up with was based on Passport to Prizes. And we said, okay, what if we were to provide attendees with a multiple choice question that is a question that's about the sponsor in some way? And the only way for the attendee to actually answer the question correctly, or to know the question rather than just guess correctly, would be to actually go click on the sponsor and interact with them, talk with them, and see what they're all about. And perhaps even just say, hey, there's a question, what's the answer, right? But even that would be better than, hey, stamp my book, because now the sponsor has an opportunity to interact. So that question icon that you see is the result of that. And how it works is what we generally do. So I'm going to tell you what our best practices is for it. And this is how it's intended to be used. I've seen other people use it in different ways, but this is how it's intended to be used. For each of your sponsors, or perhaps in your case, for each of your speakers, you ask them to provide you with a multiple choice question and explain what it's for, right? This is for our Passport to Prizes. We want it to be, guest books for sponsors. I've seen that as well. But we want our attendees to interact with you. And one of the ways that we do that is by asking them a question that they could only know if they interacted with you, right? And we've had, sponsors say things like, what's our favorite color? Or, what city is our headquarters listed in, or something along those lines, or questions about one of their products. And then the attendees go to the sponsor page, they click on the booth, they interact with the sponsor, they find out the answer, they go back to the sponsor page, click on the question icon, a form pops up, which is a multiple choice question, and they select the right answer, click submit, and they get points. That's the entire process, okay? So there's a lot in that to unpack. So what I'll do just really quickly, I don't want to mess up yours, so I probably won't do it on yours. Let me just go somewhere, go to an event that I know has a sponsor. I actually think this had Obvio listed as a sponsor. Yeah, okay. So, and actually we have it set up so it's even easier. So for the sponsors that we had listed at TVE4, if we go into the sponsor, we had, did I press the wrong button? There we go. We had a little question icon that we, that a team member actually created. And then under form, we created multiple forms, one for each sponsor. And both of those things are things you don't actually have to select, right? The default is none, and there's no question icon actually added. But in our case, we created a form for each sponsor. And when you do that, the little question mark that you added as the question icon appears in the top right-hand corner of the sponsor listing. Now, if we were to go to forms and we go to the Exchange sponsor form, you'll see that the Exchange sponsor form has a multiple choice question. And it's, what is the key to unlocking learning and connection and belonging? And if we go into the details of that, you'll notice that only one of them has pick an action for points selected, right? And in this case, we created a points action that is called answering Exchange's question correctly. So if they select learn the art and science of designing and facilitating conversions, that's the answer to their question that Exchange has told us that's the correct answer. So if they select that question and submit, then they'll get points. If they select the wrong question and submit, then they won't. So that's kind of the full implementation of that feature. And when you have a gamification system already set up and you're rewarding people for taking the actions you're wanting them to take on the dashboard, this just augments that enhancement or that gamification, while at the same time encouraging interaction with your sponsors. So
Beautiful. Thank you so much for that. That gives me ideas and I can totally use that. Thank you.
welcome. All right.
I had a question on the agendas too, which you gave me some insight on. But you could ask it if you want, Heather.
No, it's fine, Marley. She just wants to post a PAG on her dashboard and wants to know the best way to do that. She created a button called Program, but doesn't know how to attach a PDF or a PNG image to it.
Sure.
Maybe she should upload it to the blog section.
Well, there's a couple ways to do it. I mean, you can of course use the downloadable resources section. But what we were just talking about with, I think it was Noelle and her family vacation. This is, I'm just going to say, and I'm going to say the same thing that I said to her, which is this is a tiny bit of a hack, but you can upload something to resources. And once you've done that, and you've uploaded the file or the PDF in your case to resources, you can right click on the resource itself and click copy link. And now that link is actually a direct link to the resource, right? So if I open up a new tab and I paste in that link, it's the PDF. Well, you can then go to your button area, create a new button called download the PDF, and link it to a URL and paste in the Obvio resource URL that you just had. And now click save. And now when somebody clicks on that download the PDF, they're going to download the actual PDF that's from resources. So it's a little hacky, but it works perfectly fine. We actually do it all the time. And it allows you to not have to upload, like another way to do it is upload the PDF to like Google Drive or to Dropbox and then link a button to that link. And that works as well. But this is a slightly cleaner way of doing it, and it eliminates Dropbox and Google Drive branding. So.
Great. Thank you so much. And I also loved the being able to add like the agenda. I guess I hadn't noticed that we can do that. Just add day 1, day 2, agenda, day 3 with the whole time zone conversion. I think that's pretty cool too. I might do both. I'm not sure if that's like too much, but I kind of like that.
I don't think there's a downside to it. It's just giving people resources or access to information in the way that they most want it. Some people may want to download the PDF and print it out, and some people are cool just looking at the dashboard and reading it. So I don't think there's a downside to doing it both ways.
Cool. Yeah, I wanted to keep the blog section just like as clean as possible. So thank you so much.
Welcome.
The next question is from Muddy. He wants to know if there's anything new coming with communication segmentation.
I feel like Muddy always just sets me up for answering questions that, I don't know if he hears me talk about this stuff and he's like, oh yeah, you should tell everybody about this. Or if he's just clairvoyant. Either one of those things is possible, of course. So yeah, there's a major change coming to broadcasts and communication. I don't think it's there yet. No, it's not there yet. But it's close. So as of right now, for those of you that are using the communication system, which is in beta, if you're not using the communication system and you want to use, and the communication system allows you to send emails to your attendees from within Obvio. Now, if you want to do that, and you want to try it out, because like I said, it is in beta, you can simply email us at help@obv.io and we will turn it on for you. Now, with that being said, right now you can send emails to everybody in your attendee list, or you can segment based on checked in or not checked in status. And we realized probably a couple of months ago that there's a lacking in segmentation there, because some people want to send an email to their VIPs that's different than the email that they send to their general admission attendees, as an example. So one of the things that we're working on right now is adding the ability to segment your broadcasts based on attendee information. So tags or groups. So you'll be able to go in and it's actually, for those of you who have used the filter window inside of the attendees area, you're going to notice that it looks very similar to this filters button right here, where you can add a filter based on, have they created their password? Have they signed their waiver or not? Have they completed tech check? Have they checked in? Or if you click add a filter, you can go by tags or by group and add filters that way. So the exact same functionality is coming to broadcasts. So you'll be able to say, all right, I want to send an email to all of my VIPs who have not yet checked in. And then I want to send another email to all of my general admission people who have checked in. So you'll be able to, assuming the data for VIP versus non-VIP exists in Obvio in either a tag or a group, then you'll be able to actually segment down your audience. This was not an insignificant change because right now, you guys know, I think you know that there are some broadcast limitations in that you can only send 3 broadcasts in a day. And that broadcast limitation is currently just counting the number of broadcasts that you set up. Well, if you're going to start doing deep segmentation like that, you may actually wind up having 6 broadcasts that you need to send, but those 6 different broadcasts will only result in 1 email per attendee, right? Like if you have 3 different ticket types and you are sending an email that is to your checked in of all those 3, and then a different email that is to your not checked in of all those 3, you now have 6 broadcasts that you want to create, but the end result is only 1 email per attendee. So we had to change how we were counting the number of emails sent from just a broadcast level, which is really easy. How many broadcasts have you sent? To an attendee level, how many emails has each attendee received in this 24-hour period, right? In this day. So we're now, that's one of the things, that's what the major change behind the scenes in order to allow that deep segmentation of emails to happen, is we are internally counting how many emails you send to an attendee. So when you send out a new broadcast, and let's just say, hypothetically speaking, you have 100 attendees, but 10 of them have already received 3 emails that day, what's going to wind up happening is those 10 people won't receive the 4th email that day. So it's a little complicated. And in the first version of this, there's not going to be any visibility into which 10 attendees aren't going to get it. So hopefully, the reality is if you're using advanced or deep segmentation, this is an advanced level move, right? So hopefully you have done your due diligence and tried to make sure that your attendees aren't getting a whole bunch of emails, because you don't want to spam your attendees during an event either, right? Because then they're just going to wind up putting a filter on your emails and have them go to a sub box, or maybe even mark them as spam, and then they won't see your email reminders anyway. So those broadcast limits that we have on the system are as much for Obvio as a platform to not spam attendees, as they are for you as individuals to not accidentally spam your attendees. So that's essentially what's about to take place. One of the other additions on the broadcast window is when you set up one of these deep segmented emails, it's going to show you how many attendees are going to receive this email. So that's the first step in knowing whether or not you've already sent emails to multiple people. Like if you think it should be going to 50, but it says 47, what's up with those extra 3? And for now, in the first iteration, there isn't going to be a click to view who's not receiving this. But I'll tell you, in the next iteration of this, like the next level, right next to how many attendees are seeing it, there's going to be a secondary count that is how many attendees are not going to receive this email, based on broadcast limits. And you're going to be able to click on that number and see specifically who they are. So that gives you just a little bit more visibility into what's going on. But that is version 2 of the segmentation tool. And all of what I'm saying is part of the reason why the broadcast system is still in beta, because there's quirks, right? It's not, I think for the most part, Obvio is a very easy platform to use. And there's not a whole lot of quirks. Like you have to get to know how to use it, of course. But generally speaking, it's not like you have to hop on one leg and touch your ear with, a hand in the air in order to make it work. But for certain systems, certain parts of Obvio that are still in beta, like the broadcast system and like the marketplace system, there are quirks. And we're keeping it in beta for now until we eliminate as many of those quirks as possible so that it's a lot more user-friendly like the rest of the platform. So thanks for that tee up, Muddy. Appreciate it.
So Marley is asked another question about Zoom backgrounds. I've uploaded several, but don't know how to make them available on the dashboard for people to download. Zoom backgrounds.
Yeah. So Zoom backgrounds, if we stick with the, we go to features and Zoom backgrounds, this is a 2-step process. So kind of like speakers, sponsors, and FAQ. It's actually no different than the other 3 pages. You can create a Zoom backgrounds page where you upload all of your different Zoom backgrounds, but your attendees need to get to that page somehow. Which essentially means you have to create a button that allow them to do that. And in our case, for this event, you'll see that in the sidebar, there's a series of buttons: speakers, exhibitors, Zoom backgrounds. And if I hover over the Zoom backgrounds button and I take a look at the link, you'll see that it goes to the page backgrounds. So under the dropdown for link for buttons, backgrounds is one of the options, as are speakers, sponsors, leaderboard, download report, and image waterfall, and other. Other being just any other URL that you'd like to type in there. So in order to get your attendees access to the backgrounds, you just need to create a button somewhere, either up at the top or in the sidebar, that links to that backgrounds page so that they can actually see it.
All right. Perfect. And Kyle has a question. He wants to know about ChatGPT and AI in general. Please explain how to use them for events.
I have no idea. I'm going to say to you, I actually thought, okay, gosh, this is a very much not an Obvio question. How about that? I'm just going to start with saying that. This is more of a, how do I drive my car kind of question. And while Kyle, I love you, this is a conversation that could potentially last 4 hours. And I think there are people who are using ChatGPT in really creative ways that I think are useful and, intriguing. And then I think that there are people who are using ChatGPT in a way to be exceptionally lazy and not do any creative work. So one of the ways that you could potentially do this is like go onto ChatGPT and say, I'm hosting a virtual event for speakers, authors, and creators about how to create virtual events. I need a welcome letter inviting them or welcoming them to the platform with some details about how to use Zoom, and see what it says. You may be surprised. You may get a good starting point. One of the things that I really loved about what Jeff did at his event this past weekend, and Jeff is one of our clients. He's been in the internet marketing space for like 100 years, and he's the creator of a product called Product Launch Formula, and which is affectionately known as PLF. So the event that he had this past weekend was called PLF Live. It's an event that you get if you get access to if you purchase Product Launch Formula or PLF, the product, or of course you can purchase a ticket. And they did something very interesting at this event, which is they basically said, how can you use, or the question that they answered is, how can you use ChatGPT as a way to speed up your process, speed up your creativity, speed up your implementation of PLF? And the thing that they focused on was using ChatGPT to essentially help you or help people who have this like blank page syndrome, where if, with almost everything, you have to start with something, right? Like if I have to write a welcome note or an email for my attendees, you got to start. And where people tend to have the biggest problem is starting, not necessarily finishing, but actually getting going. Sometimes writing that first line of a sales letter or an email is really difficult. Or can be difficult for some. So what Jeff focused on was essentially saying, okay, a lot of people are saying ChatGPT can essentially replace your writing, right? And you can just literally copy and paste what you get out of ChatGPT directly into an email that you're going to send out and press send with zero thought. And, I personally think that is probably a recipe for incredibly generic sounding stuff, right? If everybody starts using ChatGPT or services like that in that way, we're all basically going to sound the same. There's going to be some variation, of course, but generally speaking, that's going to be missing. But if you use it as a starting point and then say, okay, this is interesting. How could I modify this to be a little bit more accurate, to sound a little bit more like me, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? They really focused on basically eliminating blank page syndrome, or what they call blank page syndrome, and not necessarily replacing yourself from a creative standpoint, just allowing your creative juices to get flowing. So that was the focus of really how they did that. And I thought it was pretty interesting. So I've not used, I'll be perfectly honest, I have not used ChatGPT extensively. I've used it in a couple of technical cases, and I've played with it, but it's not something that I have yet to be actually impressed by. So I'll just say that.
Well, we had discussed it in our pod for writing copy. We had talked about it, and it was an experiment and how you might use it. But I just came from a trip with people from so many different across industries, and everyone seemed to have gone to their industry conference, and the number one topic that everyone talked about was AI and how they were going to use it in their businesses, and like the lawyers using it for discovery and for crafting questions for trials. And it was just fascinating. So I couldn't wait to get back here and ask you about it. And lo and behold, you were talking about it this morning.
Yeah, well, and I also think I feel a little bit like an old curmudgeon when I say this. So this, take what I'm about to say with a grain of salt. And also just for fun and giggles, take a look, copy and paste the YouTube video I just posted into the chat, because this really cracked me up. And it's kind of how I feel right now. Not to say that it's not going to get us, that it's not going to improve pretty dramatically over the course of time. But, you know, what that video basically says is right now, there's no soul, there's no creativity in the, you know, in ChatGPT, which of course there isn't. But, you know, at some point it may continue to get better. And it's definitely a way to get started, but I don't think it's a way to finish. You know, there's also something where currently it only has knowledge up to 2021. I could see it being valuable in certain cases, right? Like research for, you know, for discovery. That, okay, maybe, sure, that's interesting. I don't know. This is a deep conversation. You know, I heard Grant used ChatGPT the other day when we were on an onboarding call, and asked it to write. I don't remember what the prompt was that you used, but it was essentially write something about virtual events in the voice of Dr. Seuss, and it was interesting, right? He then read it, and I thought to myself, you know, that's actually kind of good. And then I thought to myself as he was reading it, I was like, there's some things there that are a stretch. I wouldn't publish that like that, right? But it was a great way to get started, right? If Grant then spent 30 minutes, he wouldn't have had to spend a long time, but if he spent 30 minutes with that, he could have cleaned it up so that it was made a little bit more sense, because some of it's extracting and making assumptions, and in some cases it's way off, but the voice is there. So you're like, okay, that's interesting. If I wanted to do that for real, I could do that as a starting point. And to get to where it was, which was not good, but a good starting point, may have taken me 5 hours, right? But now I can take 30 minutes and clean that up. And now it sounds really good. That's an interesting place to be. So yeah, I think there's definitely something there, but I don't know what yet. I have been contemplating how we could potentially bring it into Obvio, and I haven't come up with a good solution yet. And truthfully, we have so many other things that we're trying to bring into Obvio that I don't want to just have one more bright, shiny object syndrome item that gets dropped into the platform.
Thank you.
Yep.
I will say a couple of things. I subscribe to ChatGPT so I can use version 4. I use it because I do a bunch of coding and a bunch of the prototyping and things that we play around with. And it's a no-brainer for anyone that's coding. Because of the thing that you need to, I think it's helpful to think of it not in terms of a personality, but in terms of if you were to go and ask 100 people how they would respond to something, then potentially that's the type of response that you could be getting from ChatGPT. In the things that it has essentially gone out and studied a whole bunch of information that's out there, and then it's trying to guess the next most probable word whenever it's creating its string of words. And so it's extremely efficient at processing. So some people, as Blue was saying, some people are using it to write huge slabs of text, and no one wants to read huge slabs of text. What it's really helpful for is actually reducing slabs of text down. Was it Mark Twain that said, if I had more time, I'd write you a shorter letter? That's the type of thing that we're able to do now, right? Where we're able to take larger slabs or notes. My wife's studying uni at the moment, and she's at university, and she had written a whole bunch of notes, just all these random things, and I put it in GPT. I said, just summarize this, and it was super helpful for her, where she had exactly what Blue was talking about, like a writer's block, just didn't quite know where to go next. I put 4 pages of notes in, and it gave me 5 key points. And that's what she needed to just get the next step. And so there's a whole bunch of tools that I think you can use it. You start playing around with it for things that you're doing personally. And the reason that the reason that I'm still talking about it right now, even though we nearly didn't talk about it at all, is that Obvio is about innovation, right? We are innovating how we do events in the world. And ChatGPT is a new tool that's hit our world pretty quickly. And there are certainly aspects of it that I think that we could be using, at least in our events, in our creative process. But there is, and James was kind of alluding to it as well, is that there are plugins now is the next big step. That if you could ask ChatGPT to create a to-do list for you, well, the next step is for it to actually execute those tasks by plugging in certain things. And so there is a possible future, I think, where we could have certain tasks that were generated for you. Certain things it could go and do a bunch of things for you. And so that's quite exciting. But I like to think of it in terms of shorter form rather than longer form. And that's where that lazy part comes in. Yes, you could get it to write you a 6-paragraph blog post for your Obvio dashboard, and it's just going to look like noise. And it might be the most grammatically correct.
No, grammarly correct sounds good too. That's
yeah, it did too. Yeah, I need ChatGPT to correct my grammar. But anyway, we will move on. But it is something that I think that we'll continue to kind of explore, and it stretches that muscle in our heads about innovation and where we're moving, where online events are moving, and what sort of tools we want to be playing with, and the human aspect. And there's a whole bunch of scary stuff about AI, I think, in general, right? Like there is some scary aspects. It's almost equal parts. I find it to be equal parts exciting and scary at the same time. And so we keep our heads about it, and we just keep it in a radar, and we keep kicking it around in our discussions, because I think there is something there.
Yeah, I actually think one of the services that I've seen that I'm actually excited about using AI with is actually Searchy. They've done a really interesting job of, and I don't know, some of you know I've always been a fan of this, but basically what Searchy is a video hosting platform that you upload videos to. And what they've always done up until this point from launch was they transcribed the videos and then made the videos searchable. So you could search for text and it would find where that text was in a video, and you could click on the result and it would take you to the video, and take you not only to the video that it's from, but take you to that point in the video. So really valuable. How they've integrated AI into their platform is they're now taking that transcription that when you upload a video, they're taking that transcription and they're creating a summary of that transcription inside their platform using ChatGPT, right? Using GPT-4. Then they're also saying, okay, let's also give this video a title based on the content. And let's give this video, I think there are 3 things that are in its platform. That's one way that they're using ChatGPT, which I think is really unique and interesting. Then the next thing that they're doing is they've essentially created a customized version, like a customized UI for their users it's called Wisdom AI. And essentially what it does is it allows you to define which videos are part of this thing, and it creates a chatbot that interacts very similar to ChatGPT, but it's limited to your content. So you can, if you have a whole bunch of videos that are uploaded to their service, you can say, like, you can create basically like a Blue bot, right? And say, hey, Blue, tell me about speakers in Obvio. And, it could, in theory, I've not tried this, okay, but this is the theory behind it. It will, in theory, give you an answer based on your content that you've uploaded. So it's not giving you an answer based on world knowledge from an AI perspective. It is simply learning who you are and what your content is from all the videos that you're uploading. And it aggregates all of that data to give you an answer. So we're actually working on implementing this inside of our LEAP coaching program, where we're going to be uploading all of the content that we have from that coaching program, which is, literally hundreds of hours. It may actually be thousands of hours at this point. It's all going to be, all of that video is going to be uploaded to Searchy. And then we're creating a wisdom bot, right? A wisdom AI bot that is trained on that content. So now when a LEAP user goes in and they're looking for something, the idea is that they'll click on that link or click on the bot and say, I want to learn about the 3x3 PAG, or what's the 3x3 PAG, or what's the structure of a 3-day event. And it will actually spit out answers based on the knowledge that it has. And then just as importantly, still have that searchy functionality where right below it, there's references. And it's basically, it says, here's where I got that information from, right? And when you click on it, that's where you'll see some of the links to past videos, and you can actually click and go to those videos. So super robust way of taking hundreds of hours of content and making it searchable and usable for users. So I think that's interesting to me, and that's a fairly unique way of using the ChatGPT platform in a very customized way, right? It's actually not using it the way OpenAI is using it, but using the exact same functionality, just differently.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks for that rabbit hole question. Told you that could take out. We literally could talk about this for hours. Actually had a call with, we have a small group of people within our LEAP community that are all folks who are at a higher level. Like they've all had, at a minimum of $100,000 event. And we do these calls every second month, basically 6 times a year. It's like a little mini mastermind. And the conversation starter was, I think AI sucks and is a complete and utter waste of time. Prove me otherwise. That's what I said. And I played that Casey Neistat video that I posted to the chat as the starting point. And I said, I 100% agree with this right now, but I know some of you are using ChatGPT and other AI services in a way that is unique and interesting. So tell me more. And basically gave it to them to prove me wrong. So it was interesting. It was an interesting conversation. That question that wound up being 2.5 hours. So don't ask that question again, Kyle.
I think Lee's been very patient. Has a hand up.
Sounds good.
Would you like to ask a question? Just got to find that mute button. There it is.
I've got 4 relatively small questions, Blue, if I may. And if I can share screen so that you see what I've got with regards to the Obvio. Forgive me, everyone, if something else pops up.
We'll forgive you depending on what pops up.
Okay. Hang on. Oh, you said something last night about doing things on having the wrong amount of stuff on. And that's what I've done, haven't I? So. Okay. Okay. Can you see that okay?
Yes.
Okay. This is where, so these are small, but I'm floundering in sorting them. On one of our calls, you said it would be a good thing on your moments till we get together to actually add a heart in between the times. And I've gone back and forth on that to try and find how you put a heart icon in there.
Okay, so go ahead and click on the gear.
Yeah.
And you're on it looks like you're on a Mac, right?
Yes.
All right, so go into the separator and delete that text. And on your keyboard, press Command Control Space. And now cycle through the icons. If you scroll down a little bit, you'll probably find a heart. You just have to find them.
Right. Okay. Fine.
So, but just like as for now, as an example, just click on the pumpkin so that you see how it works. And click save.
Right. So.
And that's it.
Right.
So command on a Mac, Command Control Space brings up the emoji selector of your keyboard. I'm sure there's a way to do that on a PC. I don't know what it is because I don't, not that I think they're bad. I just don't use them every day.
Thank you.
Yep.
I came in a little bit late, forgive me, and last night was good, but 4 hours sleep, I'm a little bit trying to catch up. An agenda link, when you're on Nifty 50 and you don't have the sidebar, where do I find it? Have I missed where I find it? It's a good idea.
You haven't missed it. The agenda system doesn't exist on the Nifty 50 template. Right. So what we do is we put the agenda into a blog post. And then the only difference is, or the thing just to keep in mind, is that there's no time zone conversion that takes place there. So we're working on a solution for that for Nifty and for panels, because both of those don't have sidebars. And when there's no sidebar, there's no agenda item. But that solution doesn't exist in the platform just yet. So for now, it's just adding it as text in a blog post.
Okay. Looking through last night, I saw that you've got some apps that link with the likes of Zapier, etc. Are you going to have Zenler in there?
What was the app?
New Zenler.
Maybe, but I'm not familiar with it. So, you know, the apps that we currently that we're working on for integration right now are ActiveCampaign and Go High Level. Those are the two platforms that we are currently in active development on for adding service integrations. I'm trying to remember what's after that. I have it written down. We've got two others that are next. One is Kartra, and the other is the one that Katie Horner uses, and I can't remember the name of it in this moment. But those are the next two. And what we're essentially doing is ConvertKit. Yeah, thank you, Justin. What we're essentially doing is we're integrating services that, based on the number of users that we have who are using that platform. And that's, you know, MailChimp Keep was the first one we integrated, because in our initial group of users, our initial group of about 350 users or so, Keep was used by like 30-40% of them. Then the next service that was the most popular was MailChimp. So those were the first two that we integrated. The next ones that we're integrating now, or that we've just done, are still based on current usage. So HubSpot, ActiveCampaign, and Go High Level are the ones that we've been working on this year. HubSpot is in the system already. ActiveCampaign, I actually just saw a text message from the developer who's working on it, and ActiveCampaign is on our testing system. So it's kind of very, very, like right now it's in a position where our team is actually actively testing it with ActiveCampaign accounts, meaning the code is written, it's in the platform. We're now just looking for bugs and for things that we didn't notice when we were writing the code. So it's probably about 3 to 4 weeks from actually being published. And then Go High Level is next. And then after that, it'll actually be ConvertKit and then Kartra. What we're hoping to do after that is probably Kajabi. It's one of the things that we hear the most outside of the other platforms that we've been looking at. But I'm not 100% sold that we'll actually be able to integrate with Kajabi because it's an interesting platform. So anyway, those are kind of where we're at, and that's also why because every time we do that, it's actually a pretty big job to integrate with those services because each of them works a little differently. They're all the same concept, right? They're all CRMs. They all have contact managers. They all have custom fields. They all have ways of tracking groups of contacts. In some cases, it's tags. In some cases, it's lists. It just varies by service. So we have to actually get to know the service first, find out what best practices are within the service. Then we have to get to know how the back end of their service, their API essentially works, like their developer access. And if it does work even with what we're trying to accomplish or what we need it to accomplish, then we have to write the code, then we have to test it, then we have to test it at scale, right? We don't just test it with 1 or 2 attendees, we test it with 15,000, right? Does it work at scale? Lots of interesting stuff to actually create service integrations, which is a long drawn out answer to the integration that you just mentioned. Is the first time I've heard that name. So it's definitely going to put it at the bottom of the list. But if they have Zapier integration, you can use it right now.
Okay. No, Zapier is not within it. But thank you for that answer. Somehow I'll try and create a back feed so that we've got the data on the story of those individuals and how their relationship has gone with us in some way, so that we've always got that tracking.
Well, and you can go to the attendees tab and export.
You mentioned that last night, and I thought that would be our other way of being able to at least put a flag on them that they have attended that course or whatever.
Sure.
Okay. And the final thing is, last night you mentioned YouTube for the videos, and I'm sorry, I have to reference my naivety with regards to actually using YouTube for my own purposes, apart from just occasionally watching it. How would I go about that, if I can extend your comments to guide me a little, so that I'm not actually floundering in the dark and stopping me going forward on this challenge?
Yeah, no worries. So the how YouTube works, and you could use YouTube or Vimeo. Both would function the way we talked about it yesterday. But I mean, I kind of like YouTube because it's free, and I don't pay for it. And Vimeo is always been an interesting beast for me. So you create a YouTube account, and then once you have a YouTube account, you can upload videos just by going to the top right-hand corner of YouTube once you're actually logged in, and you can select upload a video. Now, YouTube is, for the most part, it's a Google property, right? So this is YouTube. If I click sign in, top right-hand corner, I'm going to use my this is not actually my YouTube account. This one is. So I'm going to use my password, which I think is this one. I'm going to log into my YouTube account, and then top right-hand corner, there's a plus button. Click on that, click upload video, and now you upload the video file here. And you can do that by clicking select and choosing a video file.
And is this the YouTube usage just like any consumer?
Yep, it is. But
Right.
there's going to be something. What we talked about specifically was something that I want to show you, just to help you get there quicker, right?
Okay.
So first off, you can, all right, this is testing video, blah blah, whatever. I'm going to go ahead and click. No, it's not made for kids, because who knows what's in that video that I just selected. And I'm going to click next. I'm going to skip all of this stuff. I'm going to click next. Again, I'm skipping this, but the visibility is what we were talking about.
Mhm.
And what we do is select unlisted. And what unlisted does for videos that we want to put on the dashboard, but we don't necessarily want people who find our account by accident to use or to see, is we select unlisted videos. And you really don't want to select private, because with private, you have to invite people specifically one by one, or with a list. And that creates a problem. So we use unlisted all the time, and unlisted videos don't show up in YouTube search results. And they don't show up on if somebody if you create a channel, if somebody goes to your account and says, what are the videos that Lee has online? It won't show that particular video as a part of your videos, because it's unlisted. And then you take this video link right here, click this little copy video link icon, and now you've copied the URL. And that's the URL that when you're in Obvio and you go to the dashboard and you click add a blog post and insert media, you paste that URL directly into that, and it will bring the video in just from that URL. So now when I click save, I've got that video, and I can play it right from my unlisted video on YouTube. So that's how that's how to do it, essentially start to finish.
Okay. And in the top left-hand corner, you had YouTube Studio? Or is
that's where I wound up, but you don't have to click on that to get there. You just, from the main YouTube page, once you're logged in, you click the plus button, top right-hand corner, and click upload a video. It is going to take, by doing that, it is going to take you into the YouTube Studio to do that, but you don't need to know that. It literally just takes you through that process.
Fine. Thank you very much for answering those 4 little questions.
No worries. Yeah, and actually, to Muddy's point, it still checks for copyrighted music. So you probably want to just be aware of that. So don't include videos that have copyrighted music, generally speaking.
No, royalty-free are all in.
Cool.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. We have the next question from Amy. She said that she tried to limit who can get into the main stage on Sunday of her 3-day event by adding a VIP tag to the main stage and had it start at a specific time. It made the main stage offline for everyone all day. Did I miss something important by adding the VIP label to the new main stage button?
Probably. All right. So, Amy, what's your organization?
Animal Chiropractic Education Source.
And the event is 101 Light Virtual. Is that the one?
Yes. Yep.
Right.
I tried by creating a second main stage button in the morning so that the main stage would go away for those people who hadn't paid when they came back from the break.
I gotcha. Okay, so I'm going to take a look at your attendees for a moment. So I see shouldn't matter. All right, so if we do a quick filter, and we go groups, and we go group key is VIP, and we go VIP and click save. So you were trying to have these 5 people show up or have access, yes?
Yeah, right.
Okay. So how this is going to work is there's 2 steps. Number 1, you go to your main stage button,
Mhm.
and you would go to rules and you click add a rule, and you go group VIP is VIP, right?
Okay.
So that's number 1. That's the first thing that you do. I'm going to turn off the show until so that we can actually display it. And now I click save. So that's part number 1. Now, when I click preview, the main stage button goes away.
Right.
But if I go into my preview settings and I add a group that is VIP with the value VIP and click save, what I'm doing is I'm saying, okay, for preview, let's look at this dashboard as though I'm a VIP. So now I have the main stage button. So everything's working as expected. But you still do have to go into Zoom areas and go to main stage and turn on one of your rooms. Now, let me ask you a question. Do you have, did you have more than one room open over the weekend?
No, we only had one. the
Okay,
one
and
room.
when you went to do your VIP room, did you open it in room 1 or room 2?
I hadn't opened it yet at all.
Okay,
So
that's going to be the problem. So if
So
you
I have to open it, even if it doesn't start until later in the day, I have to open it in the morning. Is that what you're saying?
No,
Okay.
but it will be offline until you open it.
Okay. So here's what I had. I had a main stage that opened at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
That was open, but people weren't able to get into it who were not VIPs. But that main stage at 10 o'clock in the morning was not limited to just VIPs.
Okay.
And I thought it was because I had created the filter that started at 11:30.
Well, perhaps. So let's just say if you had already created a rule
Mhm.
and you had a show from that was 11:30, or even if you didn't have a time-based rule, right?
Mhm.
This button is not going to be visible to anybody who's not a VIP
Right.
because they already have VIP
Right.
stuff, right?
But for some reason they weren't seeing the main stage at all.
Because they
in the
don't have
morning.
VIP.
Well, no. Okay. So if they weren't VIP, they didn't see the main stage all day. Is that right?
As soon as you put a rule that
Okay.
says that this component will only be visible when VIP is VIP, then it will do exactly what it says, which is it will only be visible when VIP is VIP. So what you would have had to do is, and I heard you say that you kind of did this, so create a secondary main stage button, and I'm going to put it right up at the top.
Yep.
And I'm going to go into that one and remove the rule.
And
So
I did that and they still didn't have a button. So I don't, that's where I'm confused.
yeah, so what I'm going to guess, just to not to put too fine a point on it, I'm not saying that you didn't try to do it this way, but what I'm saying is something was wrong, right? Because if it wasn't, this is one of those things that in Obvio works. Like
Mhm.
this has always worked right from the get-go. So if I take a look and I open up, my preview right now, it shows me both buttons, and it's showing me both buttons because I'm a VIP, right? So if I remove that, I now only see the regular main stage button. But with that being said, if they see the button, you still have to actually go into Zoom areas and have the room open and the area open. Both have to be true.
Right.
So when you say, because I heard you say two things. One is I heard you say it was offline all day. And then the other thing I kind of heard you say was that they couldn't see the button. So those are two different problems. Was it that the room was offline when they clicked on the button, or was it that they couldn't see the button?
Probably that the room was offline. Even though we were in the room, we had it open. But if we have it open, is there a possibility that it could be offline and we're in it anyway?
If the area wasn't opened, yes.
Okay.
There's a chance. And when did this take place? This took place over the weekend?
Yeah, on Sunday.
Okay. Well, your event is scheduled to end on Friday.
Friday, yeah.
So that should not have been a problem there.
I'm not going to, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but my husband opened the room in the morning. So he may have not opened the area.
Yeah.
He may have just started the room.
Let's throw your husband under the bus for sure. I think that is probably what took place, is that the area wasn't opened. Because even if you're in the room and the room itself is open, if the area is not open, attendees won't be let in.
Then that makes more sense. That makes the most sense to me.
Okay. And and incidentally, that's by design, right? The reason that we do that is so that, because oftentimes, let's just think pre-Obvio, right? Before Obvio existed, if I wanted to load up Zoom and all of my attendees had a link to Zoom, right? They had they all had my Zoom meeting link. When I load into Zoom, I kind of want to get things ready, right? I want to make sure that my camera is selected correctly. I want to make sure that the settings in the meeting are selected correctly. So what I would do is you'd either start a waiting room or you'd lock the meeting, one of the two things, right? So that your attendees can't get in. This is pre-Obvio. Just if you have a Zoom account, you'd have to do that. And you get yourself ready, you'd set up your settings, you let your speakers in, but you don't let your attendees in. And then when you're ready, you turn off the waiting room or admit everybody, and everybody comes in. The waiting room has always been a pretty crap experience from a Zoom perspective. They've just recently, over the course of the last 6 months or so, allowed the waiting room page to be customized, but it's still not all that great. So with Obvio, we've essentially made it so that you don't ever need to use that, because you can go in, you can open a room, start the room, get yourself into Zoom, get yourself all ready, and then when you're ready to let attendees in, you open the area.
Okay.
And the area is essentially, think of it as, from an in-person event perspective, think of it as you're in the ballroom doors are closed. I'm making sure that the right logo is up on screen. I want to make sure that music is playing in the ballroom. And all right, is everybody ready? All right, we're going to let attendees in. You guys ready? Yes. AV ready? Yes. Stage ready? Yes. Event team ready? Yes. Okay, cool. Let's go. Open up the ballroom doors and let people in. That open area is the last step, right? That's when you let your attendees in. So it feels like, without throwing your husband under the bus, it feels like that step may have been missed.
Thank you. Yes, that does answer it. And it tells me I need to train him a little bit more.
Oh, so you're saying it was your fault, Amy. That's not.
Of course it was. Because on, I think it was on Friday, he opened Tech Check instead of opening the main stage.
Wow, he's really messed so many things up.
And
incidentally, would also have had the main stage be offline.
Yes, because he thought it was Tech Check time. And so, or no, it wasn't. It was on Thursday evening. We had a little meet and greet, which was really my way of getting people to come in through Tech Check. And he opened Tech Check instead of opening the main stage. So there we were with our Tech Check person and people. And I'm like, how did they all get in here? So anyway, yes, Muddy, it is tough to find good help these days. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm sorry that happened for you, but hopefully you were able to get it resolved. And
We without, I opened the area, but then I ended up sending out emails to people saying, we couldn't figure out why nobody was there. And so I ended up sending out emails to everybody with a backlink to get in so they could just come in. But
cool.
It was kind of crazy. Thank you for that answer.
Welcome.
See, it's just knowing where the buttons are.
Yeah. Yeah. Something about with great power comes great responsibility. So there you go.
Thanks.
You're welcome. All right, Heather.
Yes, Deb has a question. I want to have sound effects in my events. I purchased some from Pond 5. Is there a way I can upload the MP4s to the dashboard to control when I want to play them in the background, or do I have to use an MP4 player on my iMac?
The answer to the first question is no. You're going to need to play them inside of your Zoom somehow. And what I'm going to say is there's probably 1,000 ways to do that. Hey, Grant, are you able to, when you share computer audio, can you share computer audio and talk at the same time? I actually don't do it all that often.
Yes, you can. It's in advanced settings. So you can go to share screen and then advanced, and then you can share computer audio, and then that will be sharing. It's the same as sharing a screen, right? And so if okay, you're doing it. No worries.
No, you do it. I was just
no, you go. You already are. I think.
Well, I'm trying to
doing
think.
it.
I just realized I don't have any sound effects. I could play music. You do it. You do it. You do it.
I think. Okay. Okay. What I'll do. Let's go back here. This is Inception.
You're going to play us inside of us?
Yeah, that's what I just did. I played the start of the call back. And of course,
So
we can talk.
I did not hear that.
You didn't hear it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, hang on. I got a few things going on here. Anyway, I mean, the point is it's the same as screen sharing. And you can talk over audio that you're, of course, right? Because when you do a screen share and you're talking through your PowerPoint presentation and then you play some audio, you can talk over that audio and it's sharing the sound.
Over the last couple of years, I feel like I lost two of the best things about YouTube, and that's travel or experiencing things and people.
In your example,
do you hear me better?
Yeah, I was going to say, in your example, you've got a highly compressed audio file that you're playing far louder than your microphone.
But I also didn't select
is to pick up
high fidelity audio. Yeah.
I think it's going to be a good.
Well, you don't need to when you're sharing audio like this, so.
There's a down option, a down arrow that says, it's just mono or stereo.
Right.
But does stereo high fidelity also give you a better quality audio?
Yes, it goes up a little bit, but it's not like it's doing noise cancellation or voice isolation, things like that. Yeah. It's just a slightly lower quality, which would be perfectly fine for music effect, sound effects. So the way we're doing it here is by far the easiest way. There's more complex ways of kind of getting your sound in through your microphone input, and that might mean an external mixer and things like that. So there's other ways of doing it if you wanted to get those sound effects in, and there's some great devices designed exactly for that, things like the Rode Podcaster. has a whole bunch of buttons on it designed to, you could trigger those different sound effects right in front of you. And then you'd have your microphone go in through that. You know, you could have a better microphone that goes into your computer, and now you've got all of your sound is going into your computer as if it's your microphone. And now you can play out your sounds and things like that. But the way we just did it then was screen share, advanced, share, system audio, and away it goes. And you could do that even on a separate computer. That's another way of doing it. And so that was kind of just designed as, or just dedicated to other sounds. So there's lots of ways of doing it. I use a Yeti. Yeah. Well, anything with blue in its title is quality.
Rock solid.
So
Rock solid.
The blue Yeti. It's a good microphone, but yes, it's USB, and so you aren't able to intercept that as easily. Yeah, and Muddy's talking about the Rode. Yeah, little Streamer X is like a little cute little streamer that also does video. If you can plug a camera into it as well, that would be great too. So there's lots of ways of doing it. Okay.
All right. So we have a question from Dr. Hillis. How can you customize panels or add a looping video into the left side of the panel after login? It only allows me to add an image. Also, when I try to edit the font to add, let's say, a drop shadow on the right panel when editing, I couldn't. Is there a way to add a PNG that's custom to allow the background not be merged into the font colors?
Okay, so I feel like there's a series of questions. The first question, the left panel inside of panels does not have the capability of adding a video to it. You can add a logo up at the top, or you can add a, can you do a background image for a panel? I don't remember. But you can definitely obviously change the color. So that what you're asking in the left, if in the left panel isn't possible. What was the second part of that question?
The second part is when I try to edit font to add a drop shadow on the right panel when editing, I couldn't. Is there a way to add a PNG?
Yeah, correct. So there is no, you're right, there is no drop shadow capabilities inside of Obvio, natively anyway. You can add PNGs to blog posts. So we have had clients who wanted to have a very specific format for like the blog title, as an example. And you can actually add blog posts without a blog title. So you can delete the blog title, create a PNG that is styled exactly how you want it to be, insert that image into the top of the blog post, and then under that image, put your blog post. And then when you save it, save that blog post without a title, the image at the top of your blog post will appear to be the blog post title. So that's how you would do it technically. And it is doable. I don't believe on the panels template, there's like a welcome message there. And I don't believe the welcome message has the ability to upload an image. You have to do it through a blog post. So you could, like, as an example, if you wanted a welcome message that was that formatted text, you would delete the welcome message so it's not there, and then have a blog post that always is at the top, and have that blog post only have the image in it and no text underneath, and that will essentially accomplish the same thing. So it's doable. It's a little convoluted to make what you're trying to have happen, but it is doable within the platform. Was there a third part to that question, Heather?
No.
Okay, that was it. Okay, cool.
All right. On to the next. John says, a follow on from the broadcast explanation. I use Entreport. I would send messages from there. Could Obvio provide the segmentation back to Entreport so I do not have the limitations? I think Zap is the answer.
Sorry, I got distracted by my wife who's in California and sent me a text message. Did I hear that somebody has Entreport and they're trying to figure out how to connect it to Obvio?
Yeah, so they use Entreport. They want to send messages from there if Obvio could provide segmentation back to it so they don't have any limitations.
We wouldn't provide segmentation back to Entreport. The segmentation would come from Entreport. So what you would do if you wanted to send your communication through Entreport rather than through Obvio is correct. Zapier is the answer. And you would have essentially a 3-step Zap, the trigger being something in Entreport. So I haven't used Entreport in quite some time, but I believe they have either a tagging structure or a list structure. And essentially, you have to take a look at how Zapier interacts with Entreport. And what you're looking for is something that is a trigger that is like, if an attendee or if a contact has this tag applied, then do this thing. So it would be like this is an attendee tag or something along those lines would trigger the Zap. The first action inside the Zap would be to create an attendee inside of your Obvio event. And then the next action, there's a third action, which is to update the contact record inside of Entreport. And what you would do is you would have a custom field created in Entreport that is like your Obvio login URL. And what that third step is going to do is it's going to update that Obvio login URL field with the results from the second step in Zapier. So when Obvio creates the attendee through the Zap, it returns back to Zapier, here's the login URL for that attendee that I just created. And you can now put that into your Entreport contact with a third action. So that's essentially what your Zap will look like. Action that's triggered by Entreport, like probably a tag being applied. Number 2, create the attendee. Number 3, update the contact record in Entreport with the attendee's login URL from Obvio. Now, what that results in, all of your attendees will have a login URL inside of Entreport for your event. And now you can send an email to your attendees using that login URL. Or, sorry, not using, including that login URL. So hopefully that helped.
Okay. Our next question is from Amy. Will there someday be a way to remove attendees? Is there another way to make them not able to attend an event if they did so in the past?
So there is a way to remove attendees. There's 2 ways to remove attendees currently. You can do it by going to your attendee list and clicking the little remove attendee icon under one of the attendees. Or if you go to attendee tools, you have a new option called clear attendees, and that will delete all of your attendees. Now, that's the question that you asked. But it sounds to me like what you're actually doing is you're trying to use the same dashboard for a different event that's coming up. And no, okay, well then that's how you do it. Because what I was going to say was if you're trying to just use the same dashboard for a different event and you want to just clear out your attendees, I would sooner duplicate the event itself and have fresh data so that you can maintain the data and the statistics from the old event, right? But if that's not what you're trying to do, then just go ahead and delete your attendees and start from scratch. You're good to go. And that is new, Amy. Just like, that's not like all of a sudden it's like, wow, how did I not know that? I feel like we used to not be able to delete attendees. Correct. That happened within the last couple of months. We added that functionality.
Awesome. So Justin has a question. I'm going to give you this organization and event first, because I think you're going to have to go into it, Blue. The organization is Powerful Professionals. The event is Scale Fast Formula Live May 2023. He would like to know if you could verify that the book a coaching session button visibility rules are correct. It should not allow 3 certain tags, which I'll post in the chat for you because it'll be easier to see that way. And should allow if either tag 9899 or 9901 is included. So let me just drop this in the chat so it's easier to see. There we go.
Blue, you're muted.
Also wasn't talking. Sorry. Thank you. Okay, so it's this book a coaching session. Can I enable it for a moment? Is there anybody live on the dashboard?
You can do whatever you want with it.
Cool. All right. So I'm going to start by enabling this. And when I turn it on, I gave myself, oh, I didn't press save. 9899, enter, save. There we go. And preview. Okay, so I have book a coaching session if I have 9899. What was one of the, Heather, can you give me one of the 4 tags that if I don't have, I don't want to see it?
5148.
So yeah, looks like it's working.
I did not even know that you could actually add tags to the preview rules. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, so that this is I don't know, this was dropped in about 6 months ago, but you can add tags, so you don't have to find an attendee. But we did this because we were constantly looking for attendees who had the correct rules so that we can do exactly what you're talking about, which is test to see whether or not my rules are actually accurate. So you can put any number of tags, as well as if you click add, you can put groups and form responses. So if I had like ticket value VIP, you could do that as well. So you could really, you can essentially look at or have preview function as though it's an attendee that has these 2 tags. The other thing that you can do here, Justin, is you can also set a date and time. So this is for people who are using timers extensively, and they want to make sure that they set their timer up right. And they're like, you know what, this button was supposed to display on Saturday at 9 o'clock. So you can be like, okay, well, what is it going to look like at 9:01? And now by doing this, now all of a sudden my preview rules are, okay, I'm looking at it as though it's May 6th at 9:01, and I have these 2 tags. Click save and click preview. Does it work? Right? So that way you don't have to, first off, you can look at stuff in the future to make sure your timing is correct. And second off, you can double check your rules to make sure that, to make sure that you're getting them right. And you actually don't have to go in and out of preview when you're doing that. You can just press enter and click save, and it will update immediately. So the reason I needed to take a quick peek at it is I usually do it in reverse of how you did it. I don't know, there's no, obviously both work, but I usually put my does not includes inside of a nested rule and my ors at the primary. But honestly, like, there's no wrong answer there. And it's working.
Perfect. It was the first time I'd used nested. Normally they only have 1 tag, so it's just easy enough to go, it includes this and doesn't include this, but now they put the or in there.
Yeah, nested rules can be super powerful. I have a couple of buttons for a couple of events where there's like, it's 2 nested rules. Like it has to include one of these like 7 tags, and it can't include any of these 4 tags. So we actually just do 2 nested rules combined together, right? It's like this and this. And then inside the nested rules, you still have to get your and or right, but you can go crazy with nested rules.
I still do wish when you duplicated an event, I could update all the roles as part of the duplication. Because that's normally what happens for Kim's events. Duplicate it, they have a new ticket tag, they have a new VIP tag, and then I've got to go to all the buttons and I got to go update all the visibility rules across the system.
Oh, that's
Really nice when I
interesting.
duplicate.
Like replace this tag with that tag sort of thing. That's an interesting.
Exactly.
Wow, I can see how that could be useful for a lot of people. We'll have to think about that one from an implementation perspective. Like have a grant like on the duplication feature, like right now we have duplicate areas and duplicate rooms checkbox. I wonder if there's like an update rules checkbox, and then you have like a replace this with that sort of thing.
I was going to say it's almost a find and replace.
I mean, it is
on lots of things. No, but I mean on lots of things.
On lots
you know
of
what
things.
I mean? Because well, it could be in blog posts and things like that. You know, that you wanted to change the text of something, it would be pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I like that as an idea.
And it is a cool idea.
So Justin, you part one, you got your it's working, and at the same time, you got to learn a new feature. Look at that. Fun times.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Just ask ChatGPT to update them. That's funny money. Okay. I feel like I have to take my dog for a walk. Did we catch all our questions, Heather, or were there any left?
No, we have 2 more left.
All right. Well, let's knock them out quickly, and hopefully my dog doesn't relieve herself.
Muddy says, I remember you tested all the possible icons that you could work for labels. Do you have a list of the icons that work anywhere?
Any icon or any emoji will work anywhere else. So the what you're talking about is the emojis that can be added to names inside of Zoom through Zoom's API, which is what labels are doing. And we literally we tested like 1,400 different labels. And what's interesting is if you just come into Zoom and you just rename yourself, if that feature is turned on, you can add any emoji to your name. However, through Zoom's API, you can't. You can only add a certain number of labels, which are predefined inside of Obvio. And we test that every couple of months just to see, have they changed it? And they haven't, to our surprise.
Yeah, it's a text encoding thing, and so there's a limitation about when you're registering someone about what it can have in it. So that's why it's only a certain number. The other thing to remember is that emojis will display quite differently depending on the device that they're on. So it can look really cool on Mac and not so great on a PC, and vice versa. And then of course mobile devices, it looks different as well. So yeah.
Next question.
Yep. Next one's from Jeff. Can you review how to use a single sign-up link to allow multiple people from the same organization to sign up and join an Obvio meeting?
I think you're talking, Jeff, about the actual sign-up functionality inside of the platform. So it's actually really easy to use. And I'll use OfferCamp as an example. So number one, on the login page, if you go to design and login, there is
knowing Jeff, it'll be more intricate than just the sign up. But
yeah, I feel like there's something that I'm missing there. But anyway, oh, actually, Jeff, are you asking? Unmute yourself. Gosh, this will go faster.
I'm here. Yeah. I somehow misplaced your email with the simple instructions you sent me. And so I just figured if you could recap it real quick, that would.
Oh, are you talking about applying tags to people who sign up? Is that
exactly? Yep. The new feature that was built.
Yeah. Got it. Okay. So inside of sign up, if you scroll up to the top, there's something called new attendee rules. And when you click on that, you have basically the ability to add a group with a value or tags, and you can add multiples. And when you save that, now anybody who signs up from the sign up page will have these tags or groups assigned to them. So it's as simple as that. And then click sign, and you're good to go.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, it's super easy. Just it's just by default, sometimes the page loads like this, so you can't see it. You just have to scroll up to it's right next to the enable toggle to click new attendee rules, and then just use it the same way the preview icon or the preview panel works.
Great. I appreciate it.
Welcome. Anything else?
I have one more quick question, if you don't mind, Blue, like super fast.
Yeah.
I reached out a couple times about the certification. So like printing the attendee's name on a certificate, building that custom feature, but I didn't hear anything back. I didn't know if that was still in the pipeline or.
It is, and I completely forgot that that was on our list. When's that event for you?
It was going to be May, but it was just moved to August. So I've got a little bit more time now.
Okay. It truthfully, that whole feature, the whole thing that you're talking about needs a full rewrite in order to actually work the way we want it to work. So if that's something that you still want to do, we can probably, it's a feature we've built custom before. So we should be able to do it relatively easily and relatively quickly. And basically what you would do is you direct them to a link that has a, you provide us with the PDF. The PDF then has, it is designed in such a way where we drop the name automatically based on them downloading it from the dashboard. And the only thing that I'm not sure about, I feel like part of this for you was it's for CME credits, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, CEUs, Continuing Education Unit. So when we sign off, we have to verify that they actually attended that training and went through the number of hours.
Yeah. So you're going to have to manually tag those people currently in order to make that work. Now there's some things that you can do that would make it a little bit easier. Like as an example, let's say it's for day one, you have to make sure that people were in a room or in an area for a minimum of 30 minutes, hypothetically speaking.
Okay.
You can go to the Zoom area that is where we're talking about, and click export attendees from that page. And that new attendee listing that you get will include how much time they spent in Zoom. You can then sort in Excel that file and grab all of the people who have minutes over 30, right? And then restructure that file that you get to have first name, last name, email address, tags, and nothing else, and update or whatever, maybe a third tag that is like CE credit eligible. And then you update those. Let's say you got 30 people who were in there for more than 30 minutes. You update a group or a tag through a new import. Then you take that new Excel file or CSV file, re-import it back into the system, and what it'll do back into Obvio, and it won't recreate those attendees because they exist. It will simply update their information, and it'll update their information to include a group that is like CE credit 1. Yes, hypothetically, right? That's how.
Gotcha.
And then, so that way you don't have to manually find all 30 people. You just do it with an export, a sort, and then a re-import. The whole thing will take you, like, it'll take you less time to do than it took me to explain.
Right.
And then you create a button that uses the CE credit group as a visibility. And then you link that to the custom link that we would give you that is to download the PDF that includes their name with the CE certification background.
Okay.
So all of that, so you'd still have to do one part manually, but the back part we could do for you. And it won't be terribly expensive because like I said, I'm pretty sure we can reuse something that we already have done for another client.
Gotcha.
So
Should I just email the team again for a quote?
Yeah. And just actually, you know what? You don't do that. Heather, will you do me a favor? Will you connect with me and get a price point so that we can just email? We'll start just by text. And that way you have a number, Jeff. And if you're comfortable with that number, then we'll do something a little bit more official.
Sounds great. Thanks.
Heather, don't let me forget.
I'll do my best to annoy you until you answer me.
Hunt him down. Hunt him down.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions? I'm mildly concerned because my dog has stopped whining.
Yeah, there's no panic now.
Well, no. Now there's a what do I have to clean up panic.
Exactly. You're fully relieved.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, thanks everybody. Great questions today, and great mix of Obvio and then just some fun questions. Kyle gave you a little bit of a hard time about Chat GPT and AI, but it's an interesting conversation, one that I think everybody should be thinking about.
You're welcome.
Now. Yeah. Awesome, guys.
I just want to say now that it's past midnight here. May the 4th be with you.
Nerds. Goodbye.
And also with you.
Nice.
Oh, it's awesome. Have a good night, guys. Or have a good night, Grant, and everybody else have a great day. We'll talk to you next week.